In the final 2 episodes of the Companion series, we'll cover 16 different companion builds and which Wanderer or Noble companions are best to fit each. Let's get to it. We start with the biggest surprise to me, the Captain builds. I generally neglect this part of Bannerlord, but after seeing the results from these tests, it would be idiotic of me to continue to do so. Let's start with Infantry. I gathered together the best options for foot troops with an emphasis on shielded infantry, since they make up the bulk of most armies. Looking at the perks database, we can see a daunting list. I've sorted them based on the benefit types, damage increase perks, attack speed, movement speed, and so forth. One thing to keep in mind, it may not be possible to get all these perks on a single companion. For example, reaching 200 roguery or 225 engineering may not be possible on a character that only has vigor and endurance focuses. However, the majority of the melee and athletics perks are possible on several companions. We won't go perk by perk, but let's do a quick overview of the important ones. Adding up the damage increase perks from one-handed and polearm only, our infantry will do 20% more damage with a thrusting polearm, 12% more damage with any weapon, and a staggering 30% more to cavalry with a polearm. Movement speed can increase upwards of 25%, excluding the tactics 75 perk. The skill increase perks are incredible. They're all low levels and can increase one-handed and polearm by 45 and throwing by 65. Get ready to have snipers in your front line. There are several other perks near the bottom of the list that can be attained with a good combat companion. Let's test by fighting the same battle twice, comparing what difference adding a captain can make. We load up 250 Battanian wildlings and fight a larger Battanian army. The balance of power is slightly in the enemy's favor, but our army gets stomped. 139 kills compared to 287. Now, we assign our companion as the captain of the infantry and repeat the battle. Immediately we can see a difference. The kill feed lights up with mostly green. The results are absolutely shocking. 350 kills versus 125 this time. The complete opposite result with the exact same army in the same battle. I'll definitely be focusing on captains more now. Let's look at both Wanderer and Noble companions that could potentially fill this role. I know this database may look a little too basic and simple for you, but I think it has enough data for us to get exactly what we need to find the perfect companion. In this case, we need a companion with high melee combat skills, athletics, and enough attribute points into vigor to continue leveling up to the higher perks. With a few filters and sorts added, we get a clean list of companions that would work. With 7 vigor points and 5 focus points into each melee skill, the level cap is above 250, which is where the highest captain perk will be. With some farming, it's possible to get all 3 above 250. Athletics has good perks at 225 and 250 as well, so we need at least 5 focus points and 5 attribute points to get there. Looking at our candidates, everyone on the list will have no issue getting the vigor perks, but might struggle some getting the 5 endurance. Let's take Blood Axe for example. He starts at level 18 with 3 endurance. At level 20 and 24, he will get more attribute points to use, so it's certainly possible. The only consideration is how much time it will take to get there. Coalbiter, on the other hand, starts at level 18 with 7 vigor and 4 endurance, so with 2 more levels, he will reach 5 endurance and have the skill cap needed. Now let's look at single nobles that could match the same criteria. There are quite a few differences between Wanderers and Noble companions when it comes to levels and skills. First off, there are only a handful of females that have high combat skills, so a male character would have a limited selection. The second is that most nobles have a higher starting character level, which means there is less chance to put points where we need them. The final point is that skill levels can be much higher, meaning we have to farm less to get the good perks. A couple final notes. I've listed the gear value, chat dowry cost, and barter dowry cost for each noble in case that'll help sway your decision. Wanderer companions can respec their perks in 1.8, but family members cannot. This seems to be a bug and should be fixed soon, but be aware that a spouse may have the right levels, but the wrong perks selected, and there's no way to change them currently. Moving on to captain for archer formations. There aren't quite as many perks for foot archers as there were for foot infantry, but there's some really good ones that boost our troops significantly. We can get an easy 10% damage increase for bow troops, 15% for crossbows, all the good movement speed perks that infantry had, as well as armor reduction and reload speed perks. It seems crossbows have a few more perks than bow, but overall, they're both fairly comparable. Let's see how well our build holds up under testing. We fight outnumbered by more than 2 to 1, with the balance of power being heavily heavily in the enemy's favor. Our troops perform admirably, but still come up short. 124 kills versus 60 kills. Certainly not a terrible outcome, but it's still a loss in the end. Let's assign our captain and see what kind of difference it can make. Once again, things start off strongly in our favor with a solid wall of green in the kill feed. In the end, we take out 156 and lose only 13, which is more than a fourfold decrease in casualties on our side. It's incredible how important having a good captain can be. The list for available Wanderer companions that could achieve these perks is smaller, only 10 this time. One thing to note, certain names will have more than one variety and are denoted by the number and parentheses at the end of their names. There are two types of ragged companions, one being Kazate and the other Batania. If you're using the encyclopedia to filter your search, be sure to filter by the culture as well, or you might pick the wrong one. This time around, we only need bow level 175 for bow troops, but still need 250 crossbow and 250 athletics. Looking at the starting level and attribute points, most companions can get there by level 24 with some grinding. Remember, they get +1 attribute every 4 levels, so taking the wane rate as an example, at level 12 and 16, 2 attribute points can go into control, and levels 20 and 24 can add 2 to endurance, bringing the level cap above the needed 250 for the perks. Moving on to the single nobles, again we see a huge list of candidates. The main level and skill levels are both higher, but it'll be more difficult to reach at least 5 attributes into control and endurance for some, especially those at level 24 and above. That being said, reaching athletics 250 is much less important for archers since the perk increases armor, which is less of a factor for archers that are protected behind a shield wall. Any of these nobles would make a fine addition. Moving on to our first mounted group, Captain for Melee Cavalry. Unfortunately, the list gets shorter and shorter, but most of these perks are accessible with the exception of Tactics 250 Gendarme. We can pick up an extra 14% more damage, 30 more riding skill, 10 armor, and 60% more speed damage bonus, so the bonuses are still significant. Let's look at the field test to see how good this short list can be. Since Cavalry are a bit more brutal, we can't take on as big of a discrepancy in numbers. Our Cavalry charge headlong and mostly get slaughtered, exchanging 89 kills versus 69 in the end and resulting in a loss. With our captain now in place, we see another boost to green in the kill feed at the start, but it eventually roads to a battle of attrition. Our last cavalry unit spends 7 minutes fighting, no joke, but eventually succumbs to the enemy. 117 kills versus 81 this time. A much closer fight, but not quite as decisive as the previous 2 tests with infantry and archers. Let's see how different the results would be with a melee-only cavalry unit against mostly foot troops. We set up a very lopsided battle, taking on more than triple our numbers. Our cavalry actually hold up quite well considering the disparity of forces, but still end up losing. 139 versus 49. Let's repeat the test with our captain in place. As expected, things go much better this time. We hardly lose any troops and end up with 182 kills versus 22 for the other side, which is a significant difference. There are 10 companions who have what we need for the captain role, and because we only need polearm 225, we can go down to as low as 3 vigor and still have enough. This also means we have room to put extra points into endurance and make sure we can hit riding 250. Not surprising, the list of nobles who qualifies is long, leaving us with plenty of options. And because all nobles have a fair bit of riding skill to start, there are even a few good female nobles that can handle being captain as well. Arwa in particular seems like a great candidate. She has gear worth 143,000 dinars, chat check dowry is only 1,300, 22 years old, and has a main level character of 23. So when she hits 24, she will have 6 vigor and 5 endurance. A perfect match. And if you recall from the previous family guide, once she has a couple kids, it behooves us to put her at risk of death on the battlefield so we can remarry and have more kids. Look at what Bannerlord has done to me. The final build we're looking at is for horse archers. The perks here are quite diverse, giving 10% more damage, 50 bow skill, decreasing enemy armor and morale by 5%, and several others. And the perks all come from bow and riding, so it'll be easy to find someone for the role. Once again, we set ourselves up with a tough fight, being outnumbered more than 2 to 1. Horse archers are OP and we still end up winning, so let's try it again with fewer troops, going from 70 to 50 this time. Our side gets stomped convincingly, 100 kills to 51. Resulting in a loss. We assign our captain and go to work. As always, the Wall of Green pays us a visit. It's a very close fight up to the end, coming up short, but increasing the kills to 135, a 35% increase over the non-captain battle. Our options for Wanderers shrinks to 5 now, with Hawk being the best option due to having 4 endurance and level 14. At level 16, he'll have another endurance point, which will be enough to complete the build. The Tracker is the least desirable option here, given the high starting main level and needing to hit level 24 to get enough endurance points. And once again, we see a huge list of nobles that would work for the captain role. My preference would be picking a noble with 4 endurance and lower than level 24, although anyone on this list would still work. Arwa would make an excellent candidate, being only 1 level away from getting her 5th endurance point, being young, and having very expensive gear. For a male spouse, Nyantai would work great, although his gear value leaves a bit to be desired. Next episode will be the final in the series, and we'll cover several governor builds, a party leader build, and one for each of the main party roles: quartermaster, surgeon, engineer, and scout. Don't forget to spam that like button, and I'll see you on the next one. We won't go slightly in the enemy's favor, with 7 vigor points and 5 attribute at level 20 and 24. There are quite a few at level, but we hardly lose any troops, and